the city manager to enter into an agreement to purchase Power 911 system for use by the Public Safety Communications Center and waiving the competitive bidding requirements and declaring an emergency at the second reading.
And call on Police Chief Mark.
No, this is not the radius.
Okay. Call on Police Chief Mark Leitner.
Yeah, as we discussed in the Public Services and Safety Committee meeting, our Power 911 system is at an end of life. It's no longer supported by AT&T. We are in a position where we need to replace the system. As we also discussed, I would like to waive the third reading, have it passed this evening, so we can move forward on getting the necessary equipment and getting it installed and in use before the new radio system gets installed.
All right. Mr. Campbell?
Move to waive.
Okay. Ms. Blankenship?
Second.
Thank you. I guess I had comments. I had gone to this meeting, and I was actually kind of disappointed in the Safety Services meeting that some of the alternatives weren't in the pre-read and thereabouts. And then after we waived the first, or decided to go with the first meeting, I sent an email off to Mr. Schomer and stating the things that I thought that should have been in the pre-read tonight, so that they would be on the record, so that the citizens know that we're doing our due diligence when we're having such large purchases, $140,000 worth. About. So let me see if I can actually see this tonight. Okay, so I would have thought in the meeting that it would have been good as part of that meeting to have prepared in the pre-read how big the 911 fund is, how much is collected each year, and how much we get each year, and what the rules are for the use of the 911 fund. Some of that information came about in the orals, but obviously they weren't going to be as precise as a read-ahead could have been. I would have liked, I think that it would have been good to see a listing of all the systems that were considered and the purchase price of each, a listing of what cities use the systems that staff recommends, and also a listing of the cities that use the other systems, and then the name, and then try to give us a reason why the other cities were using the other systems, so that we could compare what we were getting with the one that we were using. What was the? There was a discussion on training, so it would have been good to have an estimated cost of the training of the staff if we went with the other systems compared to the upgrade in the one that we have. It would have been nice to see a picture of the hardware that we desired to purchase, because I couldn't get a good idea of what it was as far as hardware-wise. It looked like it might have been just a couple of computer modules, and the hardware itself might have been relatively inexpensive part of $137,000, whatever it was, and then it would be maybe a software installation training for the cost. So why it was that expensive would have kind of been nice to see in a pre-read. And then, you know, we could have had a discussion, because in that discussion we talked about thinking about doing this upgrade 2 years ago when the cost was $300,000, and now we see that the cost is $137,000. So a kind of a talk through about why it's going down as much in that couple of years, what's driving the price down, if there was the expectation that it might have been due to competition of some of these other systems that are coming into use, or even if the price might be lower at a different time. Obviously, all these things could be discussed now and that, but I just think that they're reasonable questions that should have been provided in a pre-read, so that the citizens of the city could go back and actually look at that information on the city's website when they're done. Council? Ms. Fargo?
I'm happy to have that discussion now, but my question for you is why were those questions not asked by you at the committee meeting when you had the opportunity? That's why we have these committee meetings, is to have these discussions. Those questions weren't brought out, and some of them were, and I can tell you that I think the chief did a great job in answering every question that was asked of him. So if the question was not asked, how does he know that you need that information?
Now, first of all, there was no pre-read prior to the initial briefing, so how do you know what kind of questions that you have before you go into the meeting if you don't have it? And secondly, after we had the meeting, I presented these questions to Mr. Schomer so that he could post them in the pre-read for tonight so that we could look at them and have them on the record. So why do I not ask every question that's conceivable during the committee meetings when there's no pre-reads? Well, maybe I just don't think of what those questions possibly could be in the couple seconds that we have to actually consider the issues that we have.
Well, first of all, I can guarantee you have more than a couple of seconds because all of our committee meetings last a couple hours anyway. So that's a little bit of an exaggeration. However, we hire professional people, our staff, to do this research for us and bring the information to us, which they have done. And I don't need a picture. I don't need the details. That's their job. They bring it to me, and if I'm satisfied with what they bring to me, I don't think it's necessary that they have pictures and all of the things that you had listed there. If you think that's necessary, you should let them know ahead of time prior to the meeting that this is what you would like to have, that this is what you expect of them, or perhaps have a private meeting so that you can get all the details that you need. But really, Tom, the committee meetings, this is the second time that we've had this conversation out here. The committee meeting is where all of these things should be brought up. And I think you do have more than a couple of seconds, and if Mr. Schomer didn't answer your questions, then shame on him. But because you do deserve answers to your questions, but I'm sure the chief here is here, and I think that you need to have your questions answered before we vote on this, even though you don't get a vote. You have questions? There he is.
And my point being is that these should be documented in the read heads or in written materials so the citizens can refer to them at a later time. But yes, it would be good if we know those answers tonight. Obviously, they'll be in the minutes for this meeting and on the video so people can see them.
Yeah, and I can answer some of your questions. Some of them I may have to get those for you later, but I'll try to answer as many as I can. I think if I recall, the first question was about the 911 balance, the amount of money we get, the 911 funds. Our current balance right now in our 911 wireless fund is $534,340.67. The amount we receive each year, it varies from year to year, but in 2014 we received $171,109.87. And then how that is funded, that's according to the ORC. Each month all cell phone companies charge their users a 911 fee, a usage fee. And then they are dispersed then to the top 5 PSAPs, or Public Safety Answering Points, in each county. And Huber Heights Dispatch Center is number 2 in the county, size-wise. Now, starting January 1st, 2016, because of the changes in the radio system, the Montgomery County is going to have to reduce their number of PSAPs down to 4. Currently, they're above 4, and it probably won't be done by January. So our funds will then be cut in half for next year. So next year we'll get half of what we got in 2014. until the county, reduces their PSAPs down to the number that they have to be at, which is 4. And then the rules for the use, and I can give you the revised code. It's too lengthy to read, but I can give it to you. Ohio Revised Code 128.57 talks about the disbursement. Just real quickly, upgrading, purchasing, leasing, programming, installing, testing, maintaining software, hardware, software, trunking required, 911 systems, wireless enhanced 911 systems. That's just a small part of what is but it's in that ordinance. I think another question you had was about the about why we chose that system and why we sole source that one system. The reason being is, first off, the ORC allows public safety, police departments, and fire departments to no bid for emergency telephone number systems. So we have that right by state law that we don't have to bid out. In this case, the main reason we didn't do it is because it's an upgrade to our current system. So what that does is it's going to reduce downtime to our system. It's going to reduce the amount of training costs to train the dispatchers. The cost to train 14 dispatchers for a new system, if it wasn't this one, that aren't familiar with the system that we currently have, would have been $4,023.60. That's 8 hours of training for 14 dispatchers. And they each make, most of them, $23.95 an hour. We've had some newer ones come on, but on average, a top dispatcher, $23.95 an hour. Then we have to pay them overtime to come in for that training. In this case, with the new system, we are having the trainers come here. We're going to train 3 of our people, and then they're just going to train internally because there's not much of a learning curve involved in this system. We also need the equipment installed prior to us installing the new MARC system, which we've got all the equipment for that. That was passed at a previous meeting. All the equipment's in, and I think the county's projected time and the state's to go live with that is the spring of next year. This Power 911 system must be installed and working prior to then. I also have a list here of some of the other cities in the area and what they use. Centerville, who also dispatches for West Carrollton. Their current system is Lifeline 100. They are purchasing a Cassidian Airbus Vesta 4 by the end of the year. That's the system they're using. The reason they're going to that is because they are going into a venture with Kettering and Moraine, and they are multi-knotting just like we're doing with Englewood, like we discussed in the Public Safety Services Committee meeting about going together with Englewood. Centerville is going together with Kettering and Moraine. So that's why they're going to that system. The city of Englewood, of course, is purchasing the Entrada Viper, which is the one we're purchasing, which that makes sense since we're going in together with them. Kettering, the Airbus, because they're going with Centerville. Moraine, the same, because they're going with Centerville. And Vandalia. Vandalia is looking into the Entrada Viper, which is what we're getting, but they have not determined what they're going to purchase yet. They haven't made that decision.
And did you get an idea of what the Centerville Lifeline purchase, how much that system runs? Would that be an upgrade for what they're using or a total?
Yeah, I don't know that. No. You mean if the Cassidian Airbus is more than the Lifeline? Is that what you're saying, the current system they have and what they're going to?
I wrote down that they're purchasing the Lifeline 100.
No, they currently have the Lifeline 100.
And then they're going to...
They're going to the Cassidian, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, Airbus Vesta 4.
Okay, my bad. Okay, so the Cassidian, you have no idea how much that's going to cost them to purchase. Okay. All right, thank you. Appreciate it. I think yeah, other than trying to figure out why the cost went down or all those kind of things, and the comparable systems and how much they run, I think that you addressed the things that I put in here.
And Tom, I don't know if you came in late to the meeting or not, but much of the information that he just gave us, we had at the meeting. He talked a great deal about why we're going with this system and the training and so forth. That was all discussed at the meeting. And that might have been one that you came in late and you missed the first part. I don't know.
I was not. The important parts are the cost comparisons. That's the important part for each. And then why one city would go to one system versus another system would be another important part. All right, and I still don't see that here, other than the Englewood discussion that we had, because we can combine with them and do some area like that. But to know what specs you have in the new Centerville one, or what Dayton's using, or some of the other things.
And I don't know if Centerville's in the same position we are. I know with us, the main reason was because of the seamless transition into the new system. It's not going to be costly to train the new dispatchers. They're not going to have to learn a lot more. It's going to be seamless, and we're going to go right into the new system. I don't know if that's the way it is with Centerville, and that's why Centerville, Kettering, and Moraine are going to the Casidian, maybe because it's a smooth transition from the system they're using. I don't know. I could find that out. I'm not sure. But that's the reason why we're doing it. We're doing it because it's going to save us a whole lot of money in training. It's going to make it a lot less downtime for our dispatch center and train and get our dispatchers up to snuff on how to use the system a lot quicker.
Okay. Did I write this down incorrectly? $4,000 in training plus possible hours?
I got to find what stack that was
and they're
in.
going to train the rest of them.
Right. But, I mean, $4,000, you know, and 2 years ago the system was $300,000. This year it's $137,000. We don't know how much this other system is. If it's $90,000, I'd certainly pay $90,000 and $4,000 in training. Obviously, I mean, we doubt it's going to be $90,000, but without having any clue.
Right. You're correct. The $4,023.60. That was the 8 hours of training. That was overtime for 8 hours, 14 dispatchers is
Right.
what that comes out to. Yes.
Right. So on the scope of a $137,000 project, if the hardware itself is $1,000 and then you're paying software costs out there, that software could be $90,000. If their system is $90,000 and we got $4,000 in training costs, then $94,000 is certainly better than $137. And from what we've seen, we have no idea how much these other systems cost. We don't know what their specs are.
Yeah, and the recommendation from me and the recommendation from Deborah Wiley, who's our communications supervisor, is that we go with the Entrada Viper for the reasons that I just said. If council doesn't agree with that recommendation and supports what you're asking, then that's fine. We can go back to the drawing board and look at that. But that's my recommendation tonight, is that we pass the third reading, approve it tonight for the Entrada Viper.
Yeah, and the unfortunate part is this other system, could be $170,000, right? And so it wouldn't make any sense to do it. But we kind of need to pass it now to take advantage, as Englewood still.
Yes.
We're still combining that and need to be timely.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So now we're in a position, well, do we take the chance that it's $90,000 and could save money, or do we take the chance that it's $170,000 and be messing up on $19,000 worth of savings? All right, thank you. Ms. Vargas.
Just one last comment, and I think that what you're doing, Tom, is called micromanaging, and that's not council's job. If you that's the way you want to operate, you need to make sure that our staff knows, I want to know every detail, and ask and get those questions to them before they bring a recommendation to us, because our job is to take care of policy, but certainly not to micromanage our professional staff in whatever job they may have. And I respect that you have the need to know all of that, which doesn't have anything to do with your position. It's just that that's the way you operate. I think probably the rest of us trust our staff that they have indeed done all the background, checked all the information, and what they bring to us is going to be the best. So let them know that you want more information than they provide to us
I think that
prior to.
I think that everybody understands what my expectations are.
Do they?
As far as cost comparisons when you come to things, as far as read ahead so that I can look at them before, so I can construct intelligent questions about the subject at hand before I come into the meeting, so that we can make that meeting efficient and get people in and out based on questions of details that have been provided in the first place. On this particular issue, I don't think anybody is going to argue with me that we should have cost comparisons of these other systems. And I don't know how you can. We understand. I guess the citizens understand your standard of what needs to be brought to us in order to make a decision. I think that my job is more than that. All right. My job would be to ensure that those cost comparisons have been done prior to 4 weeks after we first.
Is that what Deborah did? You're Deborah.
Yeah, Deborah's the manager.
Yes. Because I know that she was.
We do not have a cost comparison on the
Okay.
system that he's speaking of.
Mr. Schomer.
Yeah, a couple of things regarding, and you mentioned and highlighted one of the main reasons is, and we talked about this in committee for certain, and that was with the changeover moving into Next Gen 911, we talked about some different technologies, mainly changeover to wireless technologies. Wireless technologies, although provide a whole lot of accessibility and a lot of new neat features, it is not as reliable of a source of 911 emergency calling as a good old-fashioned landline. And because of that, we wanted to make sure to build in some extra redundancies and some extra safeguards in that collaboration with a sister dispatch station with us being the City of Englewood. So that was a very critical thing to make sure that when we researched this and discussed it, one of our main goals, especially dealing with public safety, is to make sure that we are providing the best public safety services we can for our community. Even if it means that a system may or may not be the cheapest, sometimes you get what you pay for. With our existing 911 system, we've really had no problems with it. We've virtually gone unmaintained and really maintenance need for a long time. It has not gone down. It's been very good. In fact, Mrs. Vargo brought that up when we talked about redundancy. She says, well, I can't even think of it ever going down, and she's correct. So keeping that existing system and infrastructure was also a key component, because we realized that is an element of maintaining safety and security for our community, and we discussed that as well. So to have an upgrade to that system, rather than coming in and rebuilding a new system, obviously, I think without getting quotes, it should be relatively obvious that the cost is lower to make an upgrade. But since we don't have a comparison, I certainly can't say for sure. You brought up $300,000 a couple of times, and I know you cherry-picked a comment that I made in the committee. Way back when we put in the system back in 2003, quite expensive moving into the Phase 2 wireless 911 system, and it was quite costly. A few years back, there was an EasyNet committee that I sat on up in Columbus, the Senate subcommittee, and there was discussions there of the statewide EasyNet, and buying into those systems, we're looking at around $250,000 to $300,000 range. Obviously, since things changed and I discussed that it is still incumbent on the individual PSAPs or dispatch centers, public safety answering points. Some of those systems being able to keep our mainframe without having to switch over to a new system, I think that probably was it. Was that $300,000 number something that was written in stone that I have a quote, or was it part of a discussion? It was just part of a discussion, and I was just sharing a dialogue. So forgive me if that was a key point and was in any way, shape, or form an expected exact in-stone quote. That was just part of a discussion in the committee, as I indicated. And lastly, the information that you had, it didn't seem like you just kind of talked off the cuff. So obviously, you documented some stuff in response to the mayor's email. And I know that we had talked about having that scanned and put into the packet. It must just not have made it. Obviously, you prepared and it was. So if there was a technical thing, again, we did respond, and that was the plan. Otherwise, I wouldn't have documented that. So yes, it was responded to, and that's likely why you had it printed out and ready as well. But thanks for having that information prepared and ready based on the questions that the mayor had submitted that we did, in fact, research and look into. Thank you.
Thank you. Council? So the motion is to waive the second and third.
Waive the third.
Waive the third. My apologies.
We have
All right.
First and second.
And call the roll, please.
Mrs. Dudley?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Vargo?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Starling?
Yes.
Mrs. Blankenship?
Yes.
Mrs. Taylor?
Yes.
Thank you. Passes 7-0. Motion